For more on budget expectations, I'm now joined by Keitumetse Sesana from the South African Institute of Tax Practitioners. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for your time. I'm wondering whether you share Azaj Amin's view that perhaps this delay could well be positive from, or even positive from a long-term point of view.
Thank you very much for having me, Vio. Yes, I do share the sentiments. It shows that we have a democracy that's at work. Of course, we're still in our infancy stages of a government of national unity. We've never done this before since the dawn of democracy. And this particular deadlock that happened on the 19th of Feb just shows that this is democracy in action. It shows that it's not a one party will, steamroll the others, but there's progressive and conducive dialogue amongst all the parties in order to service or to come up with the best possible fiscal plan for South Africa. Although it was a bit scary and threw, South Africans into a bit of turmoil, a very unprecedented postponement, but I do agree that it is positive, although prima facie it might seem as if it was a negative outcome.
But wouldn't it be positive only if indeed, constructive conversations would have taken place over the past few weeks, where parties really and meaningfully had meaningful conversations around a whole variety of issues. In other words, they didn't. Or they will not arrive at whatever consensus that we will see or hear about tomorrow because parties struck deals. But there were meaningful conversations that actually that were deep and wide and that went to fundamental issues affecting our country.
Very correct. So even if we don't arrive at the juncture that we'd like to, so not a consensus across the board, but the fact that the discussions were had, and you would see from the statement that was released by the presidency, alluding to that meeting that happened in early March, saying that there was robust discussion and they've now reached consensus. The government will go ahead and table the budget tomorrow. Although we wait to see what will come out thereof, we don't suspect or assume that everybody saw eye to eye, but that is not a bad thing. The fact that the discussions were had indicates, as I said earlier, and as the previous commentator said, that it is a democracy at work. They are working together to iron out all the issues. And we don't really expect to see much change, if I might just venture an opinion, into the VAT. That was quite a contentious issue that actually delayed the budget from being tabled on the 19th of Feb until tomorrow. We know there was a contention about the 2% and how that is going to affect low-income household earners and the poor across the board, even though they tried to mitigate this by increasing, the zero-rated goods in that basket. It was said that it was not going to be a good result. We have heard that they might just be, a landing upon a lower, VAT increase. We wait to hear what the minister will say. And my assumption would be that if the parties have then presented that lower increase, they would have reached consensus before coming to the nation with that proposal.
Yeah, there's a talk of 0.75. But anyway, the VAT increase has dominated conversations, and no doubt, apart from where you folks who deal with tax matters are concerned, would that be the only tax-related matter come tomorrow's budget speech?
I don't think so. So although the VAT, and if you look at the budget review documents that were tabled at the last round, the government did say, or the DG of the Treasury said that it was a balance or a weighing up of the best possible options. We have increased spending pressure, spending points, and we needed to fund this as the nation. And the only base that they could look at that time was to increase the value added tax. They tried to mitigate it, as I mentioned, but that was the only one that they could go to. Now that they have have to go back to the drawing board, we might actually see some additional measures being put in place to the other types of taxes. You would note that from the previous round, the government had proposed that there would be partial or fully adjusted tax brackets for inflation, and this would have generated revenue of about 3 billion rand. Now that the VAT is off the table or will be increased incrementally, we suspect that there might not be any, adjustments for inflation to the tax tables, which is actually a very bad thing for me and you as South Africans, because it means that we'll be pushed into higher tax brackets, although our actual income remains the same. So they will get more income from that. We don't think that they will do anything to the corporate income tax or any of those types of bases, because that would impede competitiveness of South Africa, and that's not something we're trying to do at this stage, given, recent discussions, as you saw in Cape Town, G20, etc. We also see that the fuel levies and the RAF levies haven't been touched for a number of years, and the estimated expenditure that was foregone as a result of not adjusting, those fuel levies was actually 4 billion rand. So we might actually see government coming in to say the general fuel levies are going to have to increase, so the RAF has to increase. We know there will be above inflationary increases to sin taxes, your wines and your cigarettes. That's something that's on the table every year. But now that the budget has, foregone the VAT increase, we might actually see the spending pressures coming from all the other increases that I mentioned.
Keitumetse, Sesana, thank you very much for your time and insights from the South African Institute of Tax Practitioners.